Hello everyone and welcome to the Desteni I Process live Google Hangout. We do Hangouts here from the Desteni I Process every Thursday at this time, and in this Hangout we are finalizing our series on education and studying support. We've been walking a series of Hangout on this point, and if you go to our channel and also in the description of this video after it's uploaded, you'll see that there's a playlist where you can see all the videos in this series. In today's video, we're discussing the point of choosing a career path and the struggles and the experiences that can go into that, as well as the insights and realizations that can come with walking the Desteni I process and walking with the Desteni tools, and how one can support oneself when it comes to choosing a career path through the Desteni tools. As always, we invite you to participate in the discussion, which you can do through our Google Plus page, the event page, where you can type in your question or any comment that you have to the panel, and we will feature it here on the live broadcast. We'll be talking for about 40 minutes, so make sure that you get your question or your comment in by then. If you're watching directly live on YouTube, you have to click where it says "Be part of the conversation," and that will take you to our Google Plus page. Alright, so let's get into it. Today we have invited two participants to join us who have walked the point of choosing a career path for themselves and who has very different life experiences, which is really cool because there may be something that you can relate to from your own life and that you may be supported by through listening to their stories and the processes they have walked. So let's start by saying hello to Carrie from Maine in the US. Hey, Carrie.
Hello.
And we have Joanna with us as well, who is from Portugal, but who is living in London, UK. Hi, Joanna.
Hello. Hi, Anna. Hi, everyone.
All right, so to give everyone a bit of an idea of what we're discussing and what you have experienced in your process of walking this career path point, I'd like you to briefly just walk us through like a general overview of the process that you've walked in terms of the career that you've chosen and the struggles that you've gone through in relation to that. Let's start with you, Joanna.
So, the career path, I find that it's a work in progress. I'm still walking it. It's not something that I can say, yes, I've chosen, it's done, I know exactly what I want to do, and I'm already doing it. But it started really early. I remember since really young that I asked myself the question, what am I going to do when I'm older? It's like it was always bugging me, and I was at school and we would meet people, and I would start imagining, oh, maybe that's what I want to do. So then I would be influenced by other people. And so at some point I went into this very stressed situation within me where I didn't know what to do. I didn't know exactly what would be the best way, and then I feared to take. That was like a big point in me, and I remember like talking with my parents, and I was expecting them to help me, like tell me what should I do, and they were like, no, that's your decision, it's your life, you have to trust yourself and do it. But I always thought of that as something like very deterministic view. Is like, that's going to be it, and then I'm locked. So I thought of that as a limitation. And then by walking through my process and getting to know myself, and like over the last 5 to 7 years, that's when it changed, and when I start seeing that actually everything starts to come together because it is a creation. I've been building the skills and then I apply them. I continue building the skills and I apply them, and since then it's kind of like unfolds into new things, and then things that I have not considered before. So any ideas that I had in my childhood, it was not actually real because I didn't know that then I would come to live in the UK, even though languages has been my main asset, or my main interest was to learn new languages and to communicate with other people. So I kind of then start putting the pieces together and accept, okay, certain things maybe I don't really want to do, and I have to kind of dismiss certain path, but then that's trying to be consistent while at the same time not locking myself. So I had this idea, okay, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that for the rest of my life, and that's not true, not in today's world.
Right.
So I think that gives a bit of a perspective on how I started and all the pressure that I put onto myself unnecessarily, and then actually realizing that it's always okay. If I want to change, I can do that, and to not be too hard on myself on that either.
Yeah, that's an awesome point. I would say that what you've just described is probably what all young people today face in one way or another. And even, I don't know how it's like in the school system in Portugal or in the US, but I know that where I come from, they have to start choosing earlier and earlier, like the kind of direction that they want to go into. So already when they're like 12 or 15, they have to already have like made up their mind. And so there is still this idea that whatever I choose will be, like you said, it will be like deterministic. It will be for the rest of my life, and I can never leave that job. So I better find something that I can be 100% happy and content with all the time. When the fact of the matter is, like, most people change jobs, like you said, especially now, maybe even 3, 4, or even change directions completely, like 3, 4, 5 times through the lifetime.
Yeah, and there's no real judgment of right and wrong. It's like you have to try. You try something, you see how it goes, and then be kind of honest with yourself. I think that's really important.
So what, just out of curiosity, what did you want to be when you were a child?
Well, where should I start? I think the first one was to be a teacher, because he was my role model, was my teacher. So I used to play like teachers. And then it was a doctor. And then it was an archaeologist, then astronomist. And then at some point I thought I wanted to work at the stock exchange. And then, for a moment, I thought about engineering, but that was something that I saw my dad doing, and it was not exactly what I wanted. And then finally, I saw the diplomatic career, and it was actually the exhibition at school. And at some point, I was actually applying for archaeology, and then I was like, wait a second. This gathers many of the fields that I'm interested in, so I don't have to choose one right now. I have more choice. So that's how I went to international relations. So I would kind of combine the various different fields that I'm interested in the one single.
And how about you, Carrie? What did you want to be as a child?
I wanted to be a nurse first because my grandmother was a nurse, and I thought that was just amazing. That's the first thing I wanted to be. Then I wanted to be a computer programmer. I wanted to be a basketball star, even though I'm only 5 feet tall.
That's so cool.
I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to go to Paris and have this huge, France experience of, creating all these beautiful pieces and seeing what else is out there. I wanted to become an art teacher.
I think the French thing, that's typically American, because you see that in American movies, this like idea of going to France. I don't think we as Europeans have that same. Maybe we would want to go to the States instead.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I had this whole idea with the beret and the paintbrushes and the easel and, painting the Eiffel Tower. And what else? What else did I want to be after that? I wanted to be a teacher. And then I decided in college that I wanted to go into psychology. That was just a really good fit, and then that locked in, and that's what I stayed with.
And where did that take you?
What's that?
Where did that take you? Because I know that you have a bit of an interesting also perspective on this point of taking a career path that I think a lot of people can also relate to, in addition to what Joanna was talking about.
Yeah, so I stuck with the psychology. It was a really good fit for me. Life actually demanded that I go out and start working. So I started working in the food and beverage industry. I started working as a server, and I got really good at it. and I was still working with people and talking with people and hearing from people and giving feedback. And then, you know, I've got all of my coworkers around me, because when you work in, you know, that industry, it's high stress and you become very close. So you've got this team around you, and just it's you know, part of, you know, the interest in psychology is the interest in people and what's going on in their minds and what created them. So I mean, for me and a lot of other people that have, you know, taken, you know, similar choices, like, you know, with the humanities, the liberal arts, people with those degrees end up in food and beverage. It's a nice fit. But
like
anyway,
the bartender that becomes the therapist.
Yeah, yeah, it's perfect. And so I stayed in that field, and I made a career out of that field. You know, I became a server, a bartender, a hostess. I mastered, you know, these rooms full of people. They're called functions or events. And, you know, then I went on to a management, which was a blast. One interesting thing, though, is that the people, the people in the restaurant, we often, like, will go outside of the restaurant and try to, you know, find maybe a different job. We call it a regular job. But they come back. We come back.
And why do you think that is? They come back to being a waitress or a waiter.
Yeah, the money's fantastic, especially for servers. Well, at least in the United States, because you might not make much of an hourly wage, but you get tips. And you know, here people tip their servers and service staff really, really well. So it's definitely something that you can make a career out of, and you can have a quality of life from it.
Yeah, I find that to be quite interesting also in relation to the different paths that you guys have walked, because I would traditionally perceive the word career, and here we can even go into also word definitions and how we either limit or can expand ourselves within them. But I would have thought as a career to be, you know, that it has to be something corporate, or it has to be something academic, or it has to be about like advancing in the system and going into some important position. But what you're saying is that you can actually make a career for yourself by being a waitress. And so how do you see the word career in relation to that?
It's, well, there's actually as I showed with, you know, my history and my experience, in this field particularly, there's lots of positions. It is corporate. You know, some of these restaurants are owned by really big companies that are all over the place. So there's always an opportunity to improve yourself. I think that's what I liked about it so much, is there was so many positions. And I, you know, like Joanna said, you know, you'd see something, oh, I'd like to do that. And, you know, so it'd be like, oh, that hostess job looks fun, and there's a shift open, I'm going to try it. And there you go. I mean, and you're in. So there's so much that you can do and so much experience that you can get that you can actually work into that typical career model and move yourself all the way to the top. And
how about you, Joanna? Sorry, go ahead, Carrie.
No, you're fine.
How about you, Joanna? Do you have any perspectives to share about this point with the word career and how we define it and ourselves in relation to it?
Yes, for me, it was not so much the word career, but the image. I had this image of career as a suit, like the typical idea of having someone very neat and organized and in a corporate environment. That was my perception. And then eventually I did become part of it. I worked with big corporations in the past, and still now. And I see that even within that idea of career, there has some interesting changes happening now, or at least that's how I see it. It is more and more I see that the old ideas, even diplomatic career, for instance, which is my long-term, and that I'm still studying for it, which is people are starting to go outside of that limitation, which is that image or idea that we have. So, for instance, there are now people doing something that when I initially chose diplomacy as that field of studies, I didn't know that within 10 years there will be someone starting something completely different, which is called independent diplomacy, which is not the same typical path that people take within their government.
Right.
And since then that I can start, you can start using that idea of, okay, thinking outside the box, and how can you also apply other areas that you enjoy. And in the same in corporations, like I remember like certain areas that I'm interested in, such as women development and empowerment, and then you can do now that within the own corporation, so you don't have to spend time outside of and adding more hours to your very busy day. And you can bring those skills into your work environment. And I see that even companies are welcoming that. Like they don't want someone that is just a robot. They want someone that thinks for themselves and can bring new ideas in. And I see that it is helping. And I don't know at the moment how at schools kids are educated in terms of to choose their career path. But I think it is important that we start bringing a more relaxed idea, and not to put this, do not frame ourselves that like this is all you can do within that career, because as an engineer you can suddenly decide to invent something that it's not yet here, and at school you don't learn that. It's like,
Yeah.
I for example, now I work in the webcast industry, and when I was in Portugal I didn't know about it. So only when I left my my comfort zone and I came to England, that's when I came across that industry. And then I really enjoyed it, which is what we are doing now, right? It's about communication. So even the idea that I had initially, and it's still changing, like especially, well, by working on my points and realizing where, for example, some fears come from and how I have limited myself in certain areas, then I start opening new doors that have been always there. But I thought, no, I'm not good enough for that, or no, not yet. I need to be ready, or I need to prepare myself. And then working on these points within myself, that has actually, yeah, that has been very, very supportive to where I am now.
It's very interesting, also considering what when you guys were sharing what you wanted to be when you were children, and how you were both saying that I wanted to be this because I saw this person doing it, and like I looked up to them, or I respected them. And I just remember that when I was like a really small child, like 5 years old, I really wanted to become a bus driver, because I had met a bus driver that was so sweet and so nice and so inspiring, and it was a female bus driver that made everyone in the bus happy. And so I thought, so maybe if I could be a bus driver, I could also drive around making people happy. And this was something, you know, the principle of supporting other people stayed with me. But at the same time, on the other side of it is also that we tend to limit ourselves to, for example, like you said, the comfort zone of a country or culture, or what we see our family members do. So how have you experienced this point of stepping beyond that and looking beyond the borders of your culture or what you thought was possible? Is that something that you've been working with?
Yes, I can. Especially, like, well, the basic is the language. I'm in a country that speaks a different language. Everything like has its own culture, and I think it's easier than what people think. As long as it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. So, for example, I'm sure that some people that I thought, oh, that teacher, I want to become a teacher. It's because I wanted to be like her, who she was with us, with the children. But then, for example, if I have met a teacher that was really bad or not a good person to me, then I would think, no, I no longer want to be that. So in terms of the culture, it's the same thing. Like there's certain professions here that I didn't know before, the one that I am now. And again, you will find people that can be really good mentors, and then you think, well, I could become that, or I could increase those skills. I think the point of seeing people with different skills and recognizing, oh, wait a second, maybe I can also become as good. So what do I need? And then you ask questions. I learned how to ask questions, which in Portugal, especially in my university, wasn't very welcoming. I didn't feel very comfortable in asking questions. And then since I'm here, that I had no choice. It's like, I want to understand how that works. Can you please explain to me? And then it's always a win-win situation, I find. And that curiosity, like being interested in doing something different and don't be afraid of failing. Because most of the times, the people are really happy to help because in the end, they're going to help themselves, because then you're going to do the job and then you're making their life easier.
Is that something that you found for yourself as well, Carrie?
Yeah, I'll use my daughter as an example, because the general expectation is as a parent is for your kids to go to college. So we made all of these preparations, through the years with her education to get her into that point of going to college, and she actually decided to go into business. So she started, and then she decided to take a different direction in her life. And so she left college, and it was like, oh my gosh, we all just had this panic movement, like, what's she going to do now? Not even looking at our own lives, and we've actually had it, pretty good. You don't, just because, you've been to college doesn't mean that's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. So she started working in a bank, and she's doing really well for herself, and she's got a life that she really enjoys. And she's still in a business environment. She's still working with people. So another thing that, and we actually talked about this a little bit before the chat, I worked with this woman once, and she actually went to this, really high thought of university here in the United States, Purdue, and it's like one of those places that the smart people go. And she ended up working in the restaurant industry after she graduated, and she stayed. She made a career out of it. She's fantastic at what she does. She was able to buy a house. She was able to buy a camp. She was able to buy rental properties so that she could plan for her retirement. So it's not really necessarily what you're doing, it's how you're doing it and who you are within it, and that you're actually enjoying yourself doing it.
Yeah, that's very interesting. It's kind of funny because it reminds me of when I was like 17 and I was working as I had a temp job in a kindergarten, and I remember my shock when a woman came in and got a similar position as I had, and she had like a long university degree in political science, and she couldn't find any jobs. So she was forced to take on the same salary as I was getting as a completely unexperienced 17-year-old because of her position. And so I think it's what you guys are both saying, like one of the conclusions that we can come up with from this chat is that, that things doesn't necessarily have to be the way that we think they are or the way that we see. Like we tend to see life in a very like linear restricted way where it can only go one of two ways. You know, either you fail or you succeed. Where what you've also been saying, Joanna, is that you can't know what's going to happen. You can't even maybe know who you're going to be, or maybe what you think right now is what you want to do. Maybe that will change, or maybe you'll realize that it was a limitation, as you've been saying. And something that I found for myself, because I took a degree as a kindergarten teacher, and in that, as I was embarking on that degree, I completely turned against that job, and I was mortified by the idea of having to work as a kindergarten teacher for the rest of my life. And one of the reasons for that is that this particular job, I don't know how it's like in the UK or in the US, but it is very ill thought of. It is something that is being made fun of, and it's like one of the lowest positions in society, which is outrageous. Which I can see now 10 years later, because now I understand the importance of education. But at the time, I went into tremendous judgment towards it, and I wanted to get as far away as possible that I could from it. And what actually emerged within me was later on was a desire or a passion to actually go in and change what I saw was a problem. One of the problems being that it's being, you know, that it's being judged as a worthless and a pointless job, where you're basically like a slave taking care of other people's children. But instead of questioning that initially and saying, hey, but wait a minute, does it have to be that way? And I could imagine that it's the same with the waiting tables and serving, that many people will be surprised to hear what you were saying, that can actually be a career, and you can have a high quality of life from that. And what we also talked about before the hangout is that what we see at the end of the day is that at the end of the day we all really want the same thing. Of course, that there's the whole, you know, wanting money and having as much as possible, but there's also wanting to have a quality of life and wanting to work with something that you're passionate about and that makes you want to get up in the morning. And it's kind of tragic that we've, you know, it's become so separate from us that we don't even know how to assess, but what is it that I would really like to do and be good at? Because it might be something we would think is too good for us, or it might be something, in my case, that we think we're too good for, like that's too low of a standard, and then we miss out on opportunities. So I'd like if you could, like, Joanna, do you want to share anything about this in relation to realizations that you've had as you've been walking your process with Desteni?
Sure. So for me, what I find is that almost like there's a timeline, and there's certain things that I might not be able to do right now, and that's okay. So I had to deal with that point. It's like today has this many hours, and at the moment this is my priority, and have to accept that. And that was also a point. It's like sometimes I will go into unnecessary stress because I wanted to do everything at the same time. Right now, here. And I would feel that time was running out, like, oh no, I need to do this, I need to start my master's, I need to do that. And then I had to slow down, and for that, it was actually cool to be with someone, a partner that could assist me on that, who is also involved in Desteni, and he could see when I was reacting. And he assisted me to say, okay, you know what you're doing, just trust yourself. And that happens, like, for example, I remember when I came to the UK, I knew that I wanted to leave the university's environment. So I had done my degree, and then eventually I will do my master's. I didn't know when, so I didn't put any time clock on me or time bomb. I kind of gave myself the time. Okay, now the priority is to gather new skills. So I start working in a new field that I didn't expect before, and then eventually the opportunity came where I had the funds and I had already the knowledge of what of degrees here in the UK that I could try, and the masters, and then the opportunity came back again. So it's like it was a bit on hold, and then it came back. And the good thing as well is that by walking my process, and I have established principles within me, and I can decide what I accept and what I don't accept within me as who I am. And then actually that assisted me. And I think now that if I had the tools that I do have now with Desteni, if I had them when I was in high school, things had been much different. Like in terms of the way I dealt with my situation, friendships, relationships, even with the topics. Sometimes we have this tunnel vision that we cannot really apply things in real life. But then when I start actually bringing those points to myself, and now currently when I study diplomacy, I try to bring those conflicts into myself to understand, okay, who would I be if I was in that situation? And having this more approachable and seeing the other ones as equal to me, so no knowledge or superiority involved, that actually assists me to then be able to perform better at the career that I decide on, if that makes sense. I think there was a lot of things in this.
No, it makes absolute sense. No, it was really well said. I really liked what you said.
Okay.
Carrie, did you want to add something in relation to what Joanna just said?
Yeah, one of the things that Desteni has helped me with, as far as, well, life in general, with choosing what kind of work I'm doing, is to be flexible, to be realistic. So now I have a 7-year-old who needs me at home, so I make decisions of what I'm going to do with my life based on what he needs. So, we're really focused on the homeschooling and unschooling thing right now. So that's my focus. And, when it comes to, the things that I really want to be doing, like I like being out and managing and having teams and creating teams, and but it has to wait for now. And as Joanna mentioned, there's no reason why I can't do it later. So life is going to change, and that's one of the things I've learned, is that I just have to be more fluid and go with it, and make changes to make everything easier, for now.
Yeah.
And then, hey, if I want to go back to school and get my master's after, Hunter's ready to, be at home on his own, or which isn't really long from now, actually, I can do that, so nothing has to be definite. And again, as Joanna says, you don't know what's going to happen.
You know
can't
what?
really predict.
Gary, you know what? Like, what I found is that nowadays you also have virtual learning. Like, I'm doing my master's distance learning, so I can have my job full time, and I can still dedicate about 10 hours a week. And yeah, so I mean, these days there are certain tools that we can definitely use that before wasn't possible, and now makes it easier for us to develop. And even like tutorials and all those online courses, I found those very helpful.
Yeah, all information. Yeah, that makes, and you can even do like a sideline career, that you're directing on yourself. But you know what, this discussion, it reminds me of this meme that I saw on Facebook once that I really liked. And it was like a story. So this guy, I don't know where he's from or whatever, but he wrote 2 books when he was in his 90s. And then it says on the meme that my 90s was the most productive years of my life. And I found that to be so cool, because you never know, it's never too late. It's not like you can't take a degree or, go become an archaeologist if you realize that, you want to do that when you're 50. So it's not like there's these limitations, and like you're saying, Joanna, especially now, you can even self-publish books or music or art. There are so many opportunities now that are also very low cost, where everyone can be an artist or a creator or whatever. And I just wanted to also mention that for me, like I never wanted to be a teacher. I never even considered it, like a primary school teacher. And the way that I kind of fell into that job was that it was practical, the opportunity opened up, and then within that, just being a job, I decided that I'm going to become the best teacher I can possibly be. And through making that one single simple decision in a moment, like this whole new life path opened up. And what is so cool to see is that I could have done that with virtually anything. So maybe I'm not particularly, what do you say, proclaimed. I'm not particularly aligned to being an astronaut, but within certain limits, I could have applied that principle onto anything, and could have developed myself within it. And that is such a cool point to know, that it doesn't have to be like this job and this path has to like completely fulfill me and make me so happy. You know, I have to actually bring it. I'm the secret ingredient that has to make it come alive and make myself satisfied and fulfilled. And that gives you suddenly, it opens up like so many more doors, because you're not restricted to, you know, like, oh, but I want to work with that kind of field, or I want to do this, you know. It's like, but maybe math, like maybe that, who knows, like maybe animals. So that's I find that that's a really, really cool point. We're about to finish up here for today. I'm just going to check if there are any questions, but before I do that, what I'd really like is if you guys could, you have already gone a bit into it, if you want to share with us any tips or suggestions that you have. Like you were saying, Joanna, if you had known what you know now from what you walked with Desteni, your life might have been completely different, and you would have approached the situation differently. So is there anything that you guys would like to share with, for example, young people who are approaching the point of having to choose a career, like things that you wish you would have known back then?
For me, the first thing is to trust myself and to stop self-judgment. That has been like, and that applies to anything I do in my life, professionally or in my relationships. And also I found that I had to embrace any changes, and especially in regards to the career, it's also to understand where my thoughts come from, where these ideas come from, why suddenly I want to do this, and I think that if I don't do that, I'm not going to be happy. It's like to investigate that within me. So if I had the tools of Desteni when I was at the high school, I would definitely be more clear within me, instead of trying to compare myself to everyone else and being in this constant fight within myself in terms of wanting to be the best, or fearing to fail, or to want to appreciate other people and waiting for people's approval upon my decisions. I would slow down and kind of realize, wait a second, this is my life, this is my lifetime, so how can I use this for the best of me and to become the best of myself? And then at that point, the career, I mean, in terms of what I'm going to doing the activity, that is kind of an outcome. It will come with it. So, and I think that will assist me. I mean, I don't know how would have been how different that would have been, but at the moment I'm applying that. And there's one last thing that I would also mention, is this idea of vocation, which is also, you don't need to have like this superpowers. Some kids are really bright and they can do math without a calculator. Well done, but we don't need to all be the same when it comes to skills, because if everyone was the best in something, then we need people with different skills. And also those skills can be created. I mean, before I didn't feel comfortable in doing a hangout, and now here we are, and I'm speaking in English, which is not even my native language. So it's like things change, and then also the point of age. Because you know, in the media you think, oh, the news title, a 10-year-old kid has done this, and then you think, then I'm no longer 10 years old.
I'm too late.
I'm too late for that. And it's like, wait a second, no, that I'm not defined by my age. I'm not defined by my past or even any background. I can work with the society and also work with people, like embrace people and learn with them, and don't be against them or competitive against them. So that was like I think, learning with what's around and then being creative in our own paths. I think that's very helpful.
Well said, Joanna. Really cool.
Yes.
Carrie, before we go to you, we actually have a couple of questions from David. So, and they relate to what you were just saying. So let's do that. I'll start here. He says, "Hi, ladies. How are you doing?" "I'm doing fine, thank you. How are you?" And he's saying that he is doing his degree in photography. And just one second. Let me just. Okay, his his other question disappeared. But what he was asking was, sorry about that, David. He was asking, like, what if you have like a lot of different opportunities and you're struggling with how to make the decision for which one you should pick? I'm quite sure that's what you meant. If I've misunderstood it, you can post the question again. And then he also said, I just watched the movie Lucy, and this kind of hangout is making me think of the movie in this situation. We just need time. So who wants to grab that and give David a perspective?
Jared, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, I mean, I have a simple answer. When making decisions, you write it out, and you write out the pros and cons of each one and decide which one works best for you at the moment. That would be,
Yeah,
that's what I would do.
Yeah, what I've also found is that it is really simple, and it's about looking at what would you like to do and what are your current skills. That would be my like main decision-determining factors, and not so much like what would fulfill me or make me happy or all of that, because you're the one who has to bring the spark into it. Anything you want to say to that, Joanna?
No, I think that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, it can actually be quite simple. Yeah. Then we also have a question from Ida from Iceland, and she is saying, if you have not already opened up this point, I would like to hear your perspectives on when you have many options and opportunities in terms of choosing a path, but you want to do them all and is having a hard time making a decision, and even possibly ending up trying to do everything but not becoming effective enough on any path. And I know that that's something you face, Joanna.
Yeah, Ida, I think we're on the same boat. And try to watch the hangout from the beginning, because we discussed a little bit about that. Because I was a bit like that. I still am, and I have to kind of slow myself down. And I also write. I write about the tasks, what are the priorities, and I'm learning how to manage my time efficiently. And then in regards to the career, I mean, we have many years ahead of us, right? And we don't have to do everything right now, because it's going to affect us. Like your body can handle that much, and we have to be aware of that as well. So what I would say that helps us is to see what is in your surroundings, because sometimes it's that which is more obvious that we missed. We start going too much in our head and like, oh, only if I had this I could do that, or oh, no, I can't do that, I have to wait. Or you start finding excuses to things that perhaps are really far ahead of you, but look at what is already here and then make a plan. I think that's also important. Like 5 years ago, when I came to the UK, I had some objectives that I wanted. And then it's also your own process of building yourself and your skills. So, and it's going to be possible that you're going to do all of those things. You just don't know when or how. So for instance, at some point I wanted to be a cinema director, and I had these ideas of wanting to write my own script and to film it. And then eventually, some years later, I helped on a video clip, and then I found a group that was doing documentaries, and I wanted to learn more. So there's like so many things that you can start building, and then you put them together, and then you start doing something for yourself, and don't feel also obliged of doing them. If there's some of them that you have to dismiss, it's okay. You're not failing. It's like it's your own creation, so just enjoy. And when you're saying in your question that you start not being effective on all of them, so that is an indicator that perhaps you're doing just too much with the little time you have. So see which ones you actually want to become really good at it, and also going to help you, let's say financially. That's really important. See, okay, what skills are going to assist me to create a good environment, a good quality of life, so that later on I buy time now, so that later on I can spend into some more other fields that might not bring you so much return, especially like in the economic system. But I think giving more of a friendly approach to yourself, and again, not being too hard.
Yeah, and I just want to add quickly before we go to you, Carrie, that I would also, what I've also found is that we tend to have this idea that it has to be bulletproof, that we have to be absolutely sure before doing anything that this is what we want. But the thing is that we can't know because often we've never even done it before. So sometimes we have to also just make a decision, you know, trust the fact that we've done our research, we've seen the information there is, and this especially if we see that the same information tends to come up again and again and again, and we've already gone over it, then it's time to make a decision, and then you stick to it, and then you walk it, and then when new information comes up or something comes up that shows you that, okay, maybe this was not the right path for me, then you can make a different decision. But it doesn't have to be that you know for absolutely certain 100% that this is right, because there are so many unexpected things in life that we can't know before we actually walk into it. Okay, yeah. Carrie, let's go to you for the one final comment of this hangout to finish it all.
The world isn't going to end. The world isn't going to end if you can't get right out and go into your career.
Yeah. That's what we think, hey?
And going back to, you know, looking at, you know, where I would be if I were in high school and, you know, walking with Desteni, what I find that I probably would have done would have been more focused. But aside from that, what we learn at Desteni is how to deal with the things that are coming up, you know, in our world and the people around us. So when you do, you know, go out and you start working, you can use these tools to really use the people in your environment to get to know yourself and to support the other people that you're working with. So really, when it comes down to it, whatever you do, you're going to be, it's not going to change, you know, your approach to your process. It's going to be an opportunity for you to continue to work on yourself and to really take on the position that you've decided and, you know, make it the absolute, you know, best possible, you know, as Anna said, you know, just bring out the best in the position, make it into just anything, you know, the best possible thing, all of its potential. Just really put yourself into it and just get the most out of it and give the most out of it that you possibly can, and you will be satisfied. And again, as Anna said, is other things are going to come up and other opportunities along the way that you could have never have anticipated.
Well said, Carrie.
Just go with it.
Yeah. And we've actually gone a bit over time here because this was such an awesome topic and such an awesome panel. But we have to leave it here for today. We are short on time. I want to say that tomorrow we are having every Friday we have these movie night hangouts where we do Desteni reviews of popular movies and TV series. And tomorrow we're actually doing one on the British TV series called Black Mirror, which is absolutely awesome. I definitely recommend going to see that. And then next week on our Desteni I Process live hangout on the Desteni side of it, we're continuing with our relationship support series where we will be looking at the desire for sex. So that's going to be quite interesting. And then Joanna, you have a movie hangout next Friday, right?
Yes, so the following Friday we're going to do a hangout on the House of Cards, so that's going to be awesome.
Oh. Yeah, cool. I'm going to watch that for sure. And we just got a final comment here from Ida who's saying, thank you for your perspectives. You're so spot on, girls. Thank you.
Thanks, Ida.
Joanna, I also want to do film, so maybe there's a connection there, Joanna. Ida also wants
let's get in touch. Let's get in touch. And you know, Anna, just one last thing. While Carrie was talking, and I noticed that one thing that also changed within me through Desteni was I started to be more considerate about others. So kind of like, what can I give back to the world? with my career, I mean, it's not about only like self in terms of the selfishness of it, but it's more like I'm giving and I'm receiving, and the equality within all. And that's also really important because it does assist, and it brings us back to we are in this planet and care about each other.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very glad that you said
Awesome.
that. That's an awesome note to leave it on. Please remember to subscribe to our channel and vote up this video if you liked what we had to say. Thank you so much for being here, and thank you very much, Carrie and Joanna. That was an awesome hangout. See you next week. Bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.